Good morning. I hope you're well and respiring. I hope you're okay out there. Got a good hat, got a good coffee cup. Yeah. So let's check out respiration. Here we go. So this connects to what we just did, right? Work, that's free energy kind of thing, right? We're taking free energy from the bonds of a molecule like glucose or other ones, right? And we're going to end up with that energy in here, this molecule. Remember, we talked about this like a cell phone battery. The amount of energy in this ATP is just the right amount, and it's much less than would be like in a glucose, which would be like a car battery, right? So what we have evolved to use this car battery to do is to recharge our little usable batteries so our little cells, like cell phones, can use them, and the pieces of this molecule, along with the oxygen we breathe in, right, they end up here. So we have atoms and molecules, and then we have energy. All of those stories are involved in this respiration stuff, okay? We'll get to the photosynthesis part of this as well, because this is a big connection, comparing and contrasting the two and how they fit together in this exquisite system that's evolved to keep us energized. So here we have the idea, and it was down on that diagram also, right? That some of the energy released from these big organic molecules are captured in this usable organic molecule, and then we lose some of its heat. Lost, right? Not to the total energy content of the universe, but to the ability to do work. Okay, here's your general equation. Do not stray far from that, right? So we have these chemicals, right? Little tiny pieces broken up from this big piece, and this added in along the way. So we'll keep coming back to that. So here we have a great overall picture. I love this diagram. It shows the three basic sets of reactions that we humans have defined as respiration. It shows where they occur. This one outside the mitochondria, these two inside, right? It shows that all of them form ATP, but that this one forms by far the most, bigger starburst, right? We have some terms here that are going to be in the syllabus, like the one I've scribbled through, oxidative phosphorylation, right? We have here the role of these things, NADH and FADH. You can see they get generated here and here, and they deliver things here to the electron transport chain. And notice this, we are going to stick again straight to the syllabus. So what do they want you to know about glycolysis? That it's a pathway. There's a lot of reactions. That's what all these little arrows represent, 10 to be, specific. They release energy from glucose, right? There's glucose, form ATP, boom. From ADP and inorganic phosphate. We'll come back to that in another diagram, but here those words are in the syllabus, so they might want you to say them, but not like memorization style. And then NADH as being a part of this, right? And then pyruvate. These are the molecules they mention, and they don't mention many more along the rest of the way. But if they mention them in the syllabus, they might end up in a question, so that's what we want to know. Okay, so here's again our connection with this whole thing and this other thing. This is a much smaller, more generalized picture, right, of what happens here. And here you have the heat energy, and here you have the ATP. That is the whole energy-wise reason, so to speak, that this has evolved. So here we go with glycolysis. We pretty much already said it. Here's a bigger breakdown, right? A little more specific. And I only put this up here because this also involves the idea of coupling, right? Here we have reactions which are endergonic. We had to put energy in. How much? 2 ATP's worth. And here we have reactions that are exergonic. They are coupled. There's about 5 reactions here, 5 reactions here. If they showed all the details, here's the coupling idea, right? But here we focus again on the net, right? The net is from this glucose being broken down to pyruvate. We have recharged some ATPs, and we have these NADHs, which are like ATPs. They're kind of like little batteries too, but we're going to use them to recharge ATPs. Here I'm just going to make this note. Here's water, but this is not the water that they refer to being generated in respiration. That's going to come later, but indeed you see that it is generated, but it didn't make this description of glycolysis. That's why we're going to forget about it, and that's why they didn't put it in here. Okay, here's your exclusion statement. You like specific steps, names of enzymes, intermediates, yada, yada, yada. Don't need to know, beyond the scope, those magic words. Okay, so this I already said, but I put this up here for a couple of reasons. One, none of this product is produced during glycolysis. It's produced during the next steps, right? And then the whether oxygen is around part, aerobic and anaerobic, those words that we're going to, pay attention to here coming up. So if oxygen is present, like it says here, and like it says here, right? Pyruvate is transported into the mitochondria. Notice they don't even say what it's turned into, so they're not going to ask you that. Doesn't hurt to know, right? They don't say that this step produces carbon dioxide, right? They don't say that it also generates some of these little NADH batteries. Doesn't hurt to know, but this is all they mentioned, that thing that, remember, we called this the link reaction because it links glycolysis, which produced this pyruvate, and the Krebs cycle where this is headed, like right now. So here's the Krebs cycle. Once again, on our next screen, you're going to see that beyond the scope thing. All these chemical names don't need to know, but this you do, carbon dioxide, right? This you do, ATP, and these you do NADHs and FADHs now. So we're keeping track here again of those big ideas which are in the syllabus, and so here we go. But first this. The fact that the enzymes to catalyze all this are in the matrix of the mitochondria, right, is a very simple example of how structure is related to function, because if you need those enzymes for this to happen, then structurally having them in this place is connected to that function of this cycle happening. All right, so here also, the reason I put this up is they could ask you an enzyme question here like this. What about this step? What if the enzyme that catalyzed this step was somehow deficient, probably due to a mutation, right? What would you predict would happen? Well, you might predict this would not be affected, right? So this kind of stuff would still get made, but this kind of stuff would not get made, and therefore neither this, this, or this. That's the kind of question they might ask you to connect units. Okay, so here's the Krebs cycle one, right? See, they tell you carbon dioxide's released. This is a good diagram for summaries. They tell you carbon dioxide's released. They tell you ATP is synthesized here, like it was in glycolysis. And here they add from ADP an inorganic phosphate. I think they could have left that detail out, but that's the symbol for that inorganic phosphate. And here it is. Again, they won't ask you this memorization style. But you also have electrons being transferred from this thing that used to be a piece of glucose to those little coenzyme batteries, NAD and FAD. So this is a really good diagram to directly relate to this syllabus. And here's the exclusion steps for the Krebs cycle. You don't need to know all those steps that were on the last page, beyond the scope.